There you go, sorry. A couple of years ago, I had a very blessed opportunity. Father Andrew Apostoli, who some of y'all may have heard of, came to my previous parish for the Rosary Congress and actually stayed in the rectory with me. And so as you can imagine, I had some very amazing experiences and conversations with him. And while he was there, I heard something that shocked me at the time. But once I took the opportunity to reflect upon it, I began to realize the truth of it. He made a comparison between the spiritual state of the United States and the spiritual state of Russia. He said that for many years, Russia was a country that knew suffering, but did not know Christ, whereas the United States has known Christ, but for many years has lived in comfort. Because as many of y'all know, for a long time, Russia was under the red curtain of communism. But even before that, it was struggling with a growing atheism. And it was to this that 100 years ago, in 1917, Our Lady of Fatima appeared asking the world to pray for the conversion of Russia. Well, thanks be to God, through the prayers of so many, Christ has been reintroduced to Russia, and the country as a whole, maybe minus the leader, is becoming more and more Christian. Whereas in the United States, we as a country have always had freedom of religion, but for many, many years have been living in comfort. And unlike Russia, we are moving in greater and greater numbers as a country towards atheism and away from Christ. And I know we hate comparisons with Russia, especially those that leave us on the negative side. But what is it that Russia has, or what is it that they are doing that is so different from us? And it is a very important thing. It's the cross. Because for a country like Russia, who understood suffering for so many years without Christ, once Christ was reintroduced to the country, their longing and yearning for Him enabled them to receive Him. However, us as a country who, thanks be to God, have been free from religion, struggle with the temptation to comfort. And of course, I'm not speaking of all individuals, but really the country as a whole. Because if we fail to see Christ in the light of His cross and the necessity of it for His mission, we lose who He truly is. And if we fail to understand what it means to be His disciple and to bear the cross in our own lives, we become like those in the second reading who are unable to recognize Christ as the cornerstone, and instead we stumble through life. Because without that connection, Christ is relegated strictly to a God of comfort. And yes, of course, Jesus comforts us in our weakness and in our suffering and in our sorrows, but that isn't what I mean. When I say God of comfort, it is that we worry more about the emotional and physical comforts that He offers, more than the deeper spiritual relationship that we are called to. God becomes one who is there solely to make us feel happy and to remove suffering from our lives. However, with this, there's a very slippery slope. If that is all that God is, what happens when He allows suffering in our lives? We can begin to think that God must not love us, or we can think that He doesn't care. Or maybe we begin to think that maybe there isn't even a God at all, and then seek out other material pleasures that can give us the feelings of happiness and comfort that we long for. My brothers and sisters, when Christ is separated from His salvific mission, and for the role that He has allowed us to share in His mission of carrying our own crosses, we lose who He is, and we lose what He is calling us to. Because passing pleasures are not enough. Temporary happiness will not sustain. Because what we truly long for is holiness. And only that can bring us the fulfillment and the human flourishing that we are called to. And this can only come from uniting Christ with his mission and by understanding the role he has given us to be a part of it. And this comes through uniting ourselves to him in good times and in bad, in sickness and in health, in joy and in suffering. And if this sounds like wedding vows, then yeah, you heard correctly. Because Christ has proposed to humanity through the cross. For he loved us even unto death. And we as a people need only respond to his love, respond to his yes. And we respond by taking up our own crosses because we truly believe what we read about in the gospel today. As Jesus tells us that he is the way, the truth, and the life, the way to the Father. And that he is going before us to prepare a place for us in heaven. And if we truly believe and trust in that, then we follow him through daily taking up our crosses. And I'll leave y'all with a very, very beautiful image that I love. And it's the image of a young man being shown how to purify silver by an old master. And the old master is in the room, and he takes the bar of silver and he puts it into an oven and heats the oven up. When the bar gets to a deep red color, he pulls it out and he looks at it as it cools and he says it's not ready. So he heats up the oven more. And this time it gets to kind of an orangish color. He takes it out, allows it to cool, looks at it, and says it's not ready yet. And the young man says, "What are you looking for to know it's ready?" He says, "Wait and you'll see." And he puts it back in the oven one more time, heats up the oven really, really high to the point of almost where the silver is melting. Takes it out, allows it to cool, looks at it, and he says, "Now it's ready." And the young man says, "How do you know?" And he says, "Because now when I look at the silver, I see my reflection in it." And that, my brothers and sisters, is an image that really shows us the role that suffering can play in our lives. The role that the cross plays in our lives. It purifies our hearts so that Christ can see himself in us. So the call this day is to trust in he is the way, the truth, and the life, and to take up our crosses and follow him.